Welcome to the TAPA APAC webinar training on Business Continuity and Recovery Planning. And today, we are joined by our trainers, Mr. Elliot Lee and Mr. Roger Lee. In recent coronavirus global threat, supply chains have been severely disrupted, and companies are now facing logistics delay and production stoppages. TAPA recent survey shows that 80% of the companies do not have business continuity management to mitigate the impact. This webinar training aims to address this gap and help companies manage business disruptions. Now let's begin the training.
Okay, next I'll start on what we call business continuity management. How do we build a resilience, I would say, supply chain network, all right? At the moment, with the COVID-19, all right, a lot of companies are facing many challenges. Companies that survive very well in terms of preparing for the upturn normally have a very strong supply chain resilience. The supply chain resilience comprises of supply chain reengineering, supply chain collaboration, supply chain risk culture, and agility. One of the most important part in COVID-19 is what we call agility. Agility comprises of what we call visibility and velocity. Visibility is how are we knowing what is happening to our shipment? I think that's the key, right? The ability to know what's happening to our shipment, ability to know our production patterns, ability to know whether our suppliers are able to supply on time. And of course, the velocity right now is very crucial. Very crucial meaning how fast, the speed in which we can get our supplier up, the speed in which we can ship to our customer, and what kind of strategy we can do to ensure that the customer can receive on time, right? Even if the customer can't receive on time, are we able to tell the customer when exactly the shipment will be arriving to the customer location? Because at the moment, a lot of government are actually pushing very hard to still maintain the shipment. The supply chain would not want to stop. Governments are working hard. However, due to sudden changes in the port, example, recently, one of the countries, the port operation stopped because someone got infected. All right. So for agility, we need to look at visibility and also velocity. All right. I think that's the key area we need to talk about. All right. Okay. Supply chain resilience. The resilience we talk about will be resistance and recovery. Resistance is avoidance, containment. All right. How do we avoid? How do we contain? The avoidance means we have to put in a lot of hard work. All right, to present to ensure that there's avoidance, and recovery is stabilization and return. Okay, the things to consider talk about diversification of plan. All right, here diversification of plan. All right, develop transport mitigation. How do we develop risk mitigation? How do we diversify the plan? And of course, under the business impact analysis, all right, you have got business impact analysis here, risk assessment. Okay, the whole business continuity framework is what we call business impact analysis, risk assessment, strategy development, plan development, exercise, and plan update. So it's a circle always. All right, how do we ensure this? Business impact analysis, that's the most important. All right, what are the 5 critical questions? All right, number 1, what department and processes are most critical? You have to establish which is the most critical. For example, in the food business, what is most critical in the food business? Very important will be the air conditioning, right? The air conditioning system. Aircon system cannot be down. So you must have 100% backup for aircon. If the aircon system is down, finish. The whole warehouse, the food can be thrown away. Imagine you got your ice cream all melted. All right. So you have to look at what is the most critical right now, all right, in your company. What are the priority to resume operation? Okay, major disruption. How fast? How soon is time sensitive production? What resources are required? And financial impact of extended downtime. So I think these are some of the areas which are very important. Okay, next we look at will be what we call the risk assessment. All right, the strategy development, plan development, exercise, plan update. All right, and what are the key areas here? Computer outage, computer failure. Example, computer failure. Example, SAP, MRP, ERP, you know, these are all the areas that we did. ERP failure, all of you, ERP system failure, what do you all do? You all sit on your desk and bite your fingernail. You can't do anything at all, right? So we can't afford that. All right. So under the risk assessment, from here onwards, I will.
Okay, here are some notes. Identify critical business function. Yeah, as Roger have highlighted, right? We have upstream and downstreams functions to look at or roles to look at. So definitely you need to look at your entire upstream and downstreams from a linear standpoint. All right. Of course, you need to look at your entire ecosystems. So in terms of your area of scope of work today, yeah, you will be looking at your staff. Is your staff prepared, right? Are they trained? Are there staff that posted to another department, but under the BCP, this person is a first aider. Now, do you have additional first aider in it? So these are the things that you need to look at. In terms of vital information, it's a big headache right now in Singapore for those who are in Singapore or those who have taken note of Singapore situation. The Ministry of Education says that everybody all children has to stay home and work. Company employees, you have to work from home. Then the question is like, oops, I don't have a laptop. Oops, I don't have enough computer because I have 3 kids. My house only got 2 computers, so the kids go first because of the school. So you do have equipment, you do have information access, and some company does not allow any employee to access from external outside the office into the company systems and servers. So this also creates a lot of issues. So it's good for you to take a look right now, and when you go back, what are the initiatives that you need to focus on? Please take note of them because this is a good exercise right now under the COVID virus. Actually, it's a real test whether you are agile, right? As Roger says, during normal time, everybody can meet the normal time standards. All right, you can score number 1 in position in your area of expertise in a normal condition, but the real test will come when it comes to crisis like this. And if you realize from a healthcare standpoint, many people claim that they are number 1 healthcare in the world, but if you look at today, they are really in the nest. And those who are not ranked normally in the top front of the healthcare best practices, when it comes to critical condition like this, they are more mobile, they are more flexible and adaptable, and therefore they can cope better in a certain areas. So again, you need to look at when it comes to contingencies, critical crisis period. So look at your supplies and your facilities. So these are the critical business function. Okay, let's dive into this. When we say that business continuity plan versus business continuity management, what is the difference? Now, in a typical company, you will only have one business continuity management documents. All right, that will entails all your strategic direction, your philosophies of handling things, as well as what Roger had just mentioned is your business continuity framework, right? This is how we do things. This is your norms. This is your culture when it comes to crisis management. Now, when we come to business continuity plan, this plan is catered to a very specific scenarios, crisis scenarios. And in theory, right, when we say a crisis, when do we need to have a BCP from a theory standpoint? Because this will be asked later on when you anything that is above 72 hours disruption, right? If you foresee there's a 72 hours disruption, you will need a BCP. Yeah. Okay, take note of that. So a BCP is all about certain crisis and what are your procedures, right? What are your processes? Where you see on the slides here that a BCP has a defined strategies targeted to a specific scenario, and you have detailed procedures how to manage the crisis. At the same time, how do you make plans for recovery? All right. A case in point is some of the countries, including Singapore, and I think the louder country will be UK and US. While while the situation is ramping, people are frantic. People say it's not enough equipment, not enough resources, and so forth. People are screaming on the ground, and that is real, right? But at the same time, if you have all the attention of everybody in the company just to focus on that and did not focus on recovery, making plans for recovery, then you will have sacrificed the time to start your recovery. So this thing has to go, ideally has to go hand in hand. And it's tough. It's tough, right? Like, when I was in China, we did a merger of two big European companies in the world, right? And the company is losing money, and then China have certain crisis at that same year. So 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 you have noises, you have frustrations, people are screaming at each other. Yeah. So typically the the mid the management and also the senior management and especially to the operating level, like all of you, you all will be scrambling and scrambling to do a lot of tactical uh, recovery, right? Tactical moves to ensure that the crisis don't impact the business negatively much more, right? But at the same time, as leaders, you need really, I know it's tough to start making plans to have a group to focus on recovery itself. So this is a business continuity plan. It's huge document. Okay, depend on the size of the company. When we were in Changi Airport, it was a huge encyclopedia, right? Entailing into very detailed action plans and who in charge of what and so forth. So this is a BCP in general, a document of series of activities. So I shall not drag too much on that. So in terms of the strategy, so in this document, even though it's targeting in a certain crisis scenario, you do have this strategy overview page, right? So sometimes it could be wording, sometimes it could be diagrams and so forth, right? Or mini framework for that may be inserted as well. So you have recovery requirements, you have team members. Recovery requirements are it could be a list of checklists, what to focus first. Now, I also wanted to highlight here that in all your crisis management activation, one critical departments if you have that you need Singaporean way say die you must protect is your call center. Call center during crisis, that is your first customer's image that has to be continue to function. Of course, we know call center, right, will be jam-packed. You can't dial in, and I don't want to hear, please Chinese press 1, English press 2. Frustrations. But again, as an organization, your call center capability will have to really double up. All right. And do you have plans to have your second, third call centers or mini call centers to double up when it comes to crisis. So it's a heavy investment, but it's a critical functions to protect over here. And we mentioned about team members. So who are the first aiders? Who are the fire wardens? Who are supposed to look after the warehouse, the spare warehouse, start to activate your contingency facilities. So all your team members, that key team members that's involved in this particular crisis scenarios, their name, their contact number has to be there. All right. So I'm sure you people have been doing a lot of fire drills and all this. So it's same. It's the same. All right. And you have offsite materials. And this is something that you procure things, right? Customer procure things from you. Now, do you have alternatives materials? Do you have alternative suppliers? And you can't be every day happily when things are normal. You only use one suppliers or two, and you never build the third and the fourth in relationship. In relationship means keep it warm, or okay lah, 1-2% of my business I can give it to you just to keep the relationship. Because if you do your risk assessment, if you realize that the chances of your first two normal suppliers can boo boo once a while, or every 10 years, or every 5 years, boo boo it for you, which means that sorry, I can't supply you because my case in point is like China, right? China says no, all medical equipment related to COVID, the health ministry must approve first. Because what happens 2 weeks before today, rampant, right? Suppliers want to seize the opportunity to make money, so they make inferior quality products, never check properly, and they launch in the market, and it tarnish the country's image. So there was a lockdown of inspection before the customs are being allowed to agree to relist the goods. So you may be stuck, right? You may be stuck. A good case in point today in Japan is Nissan. I know Roger has mentioned it. Previously, they have done well in tsunami. What happens is in Fukuoka, Nissan plant was shut even of today because all their spare parts came from China. So since after our Singapore Chinese New Year, the plant won't at that time Japan haven't really big impacted by the COVID in the own country. So the plant was wanted to, after New Year, of course the plant will continue to do production, but the plant will have to shut because no supply coming from China, right? Because China was on total lockdown. So these scenarios happen really, and we see it in our very eye today. So please, I want to emphasize again is to focus on your vendors list, right? And make sure you, when clients are stuck, you still have alternatives coming from your other branches or other countries who can supply the same client over here. Okay, and one of the last few documents in the BCP is your activities list. So this one you're familiar and all the details. All right, so it's a huge document. It's tough to maintain. I know there are always obsolete things inside, but don't kill yourself. Don't kill somebody because of that. It happens. It happens. All right, that you can't be having a full-time staff every day just reading this document. It's not ideal. It's very costly to do that. Okay, an activity is an operating unit of the plan. Okay, so I would not want to elaborate this much. So in each activity, it's all about what, when, how, any other options you have, right? Again, all this for the purpose of ensuring that you continue to deliver your products and services. Okay. There are typically 5 phases over here, and not every crisis will go diligently to all the 5 phases. Some will stop at phase 3 or 4, depend on the nature of the crisis. All right. So whenever a crisis happen, all right, first of all, your our experience, do a pulse check, right? Do a check, right? What happened, right? So do a quick assessment. Do you need to activate something else, or does you already have firemen over there, as portable extinguisher, extinguish it? That will be fine. All right. If that is fine, that's good for you. If not, it may escalate to your contingency plans, and you have to start looking at so let's say the contingency plans is like, okay, I got warehouse to continue, can provide the supplies to my customers. That's fine, right? Then you will just stop there. Now if it goes beyond that, you know that, okay, even my next warehouse can only supply uh, can only last 2 days, because shipment will continue to come in. My warehouse is going to full to the brim. All right. And I cannot put my materials under the sun and so forth. Right. So you need to activate your resource provision. Whether do you can rent a temporary warehouse, host your materials elsewhere, right? Get your, if it's IT related, do you have alternative systems to operate, right? So you need to look at all your resource allocation, resource planning over here. And yeah, while you are doing your recovery, you are moving towards operations resumption as in the normal days, and you return to your normal. Now, as I mentioned before, depending on the nature of the disruption, all right, some areas may recover faster than the rest. So a case in point again is UK, US, the larger countries. Singapore is only one place, so we don't really impact us on these strategies when managing this COVID. So in US and UK, they would say that, okay, maybe certain town, certain region in my big country, they can go back to life to normal, right? While the epicenter of the COVID, sorry, you are still fully locked down. So you may open certain parts, of course, with calculated risk. You may open certain parts to resume normal operations. So you can make that judgment call. And in reality, that is likely to be happen, right? So BCP plans must be effective with or without warning. Okay, this is the academic part. Take all hazard approach, include alternate facilities, have critical functions operational within an acceptable amount of time, be able to sustain operations for extended time frame. So this is critical. This last point is like, how long will our lockdown or partial lockdown last? So some people say, June will be fine. Some people say, sorry. I think US for California or Chicago was saying, the governor was saying that, sorry, no major concerts and all this until mid of 2021. Of course, people scream. Businesses will scream. It's like, what? Yeah. So again, know that. Yeah. And when we look at all this pandemic crisis, if you track in history, in time, especially over the last 20 years or so, is that every 5 years you will have some sort of pandemic. Yeah. So this is from a research standpoint, is that regular every 5 years? It's as regular as your political elections and so forth. All right. Of course, some countries every year you have flooding here, flooding there. You have hot season, right? During summer, people cannot work outside, or they can only work with very short hours. I know people in China, they have HR policies that look after that. And there is a business plan when it comes to summer that hits 40 and above. There are certain actions that every company needs to comply. All right. So if you have businesses in Saudi, which I worked in Saudi before, most of the time, most of the places and most of the time are hot, right? It's 40s, 50s. So how do you carry out? To them, that is the norms, right? If to Singapore were to hit one day, hit 35, 37, 38, we will be screaming. And do we have contingencies, procedures for that? And I can tell you most companies don't. And for Singapore to hit that kind of temperature, it can happen.
Thank you for joining the TAPA APAC Business Continuity and Recovery Planning webinar training. We hope that you have enjoyed the training and the question and answer session. Look out for more webinars and trainings coming up as part of our member services. If you have any questions, please contact the Secretariat. We look forward to seeing you at the next webinar sessions.